Hi guys, and welcome back to another DIY episode with me, Liana. Today I'll be sharing with you how to do thrift transformation using two basic simple style dresses. Now these two simple style dresses I purposely chose because I know you can easily find them at op shops. If not, then you can probably rummage through your mom's old wardrobe, but they are super easy to transform. So the two dresses that I used in today's episode, one is from Cuba and one is from like Country Road, super vintage, probably back in the 1990s. And so I purchased them for like $3 or $4 from Salvation Army or Savers. I don't remember because it was purchased so long ago, but super cheap. And they are both quite boxy, straight silhouettes, and quite bland and unflattering on my body shape. So what better way to transform it to modern, new, fresh, dope pieces that will fit my body figure. And most importantly, I got the inspiration from Trois the Label. Trois the Label, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly, but they are a super cool, modern, minimal brand, and I love their pieces that they have. They are quite more on the high-end side of labels. I think one of their tops can range between like $70 to $150, which can be quite pricey. So what better way to do it yourself? I'll show you just how easy it is to transform two basic style dresses into new pieces. To be exact, I made 4 new pieces. So there's 3 tops and 1 skirt, and they're so wearable for like everyday outings or dressy occasions, and I can't wait to wear it out once restrictions are done with here in Melbourne. So let's jump right into it. First, I'm just going to put a pin in place at where I want to shorten the top to. So we're just going to go ahead and draw in a line at where we want to shorten the top. Folding the top in half, we're able to go ahead and cut across that straight line in which we had just drawn. After this, we're able to cut the side seam on the left and right side. The next step, I am going to taper in the top to make it a little bit more fitted as opposed to being oversized. What I've done here is that I've taken in some of the excess fabric on the side seams and just cinched it in by a few centimeters. Alright, so copying the pins that we've put in place for the top, this is the back part of the top. I'm just going to copy these pins across onto the other side of the top so that they're both symmetrical. They've been folded in at 5 centimeters. Obviously, depending on the dress that you've cut up, it'll depend on how much you want to take in. It's a personal preference of how much you want to take in. Obviously, depending on how loose or tight you want the top to look like. Next, we're going to move on to the front, and we're just going to measure the side seam at where we want to taper it in and reflect it onto the other side of the side seam so that they match up exactly the same. So on the front side of the top, we're just going to cut off the excess on the left and right side seams. Flipping it over to the back side of the top, we're just going to leave the pins in place because we're just going to fold this 5 centimeter excess into a double fold and then edge stitch it. So now we're able to move on to sewing all the raw edges down. Because it's a delicate fabric of silk and cotton, I would recommend folding in at 0.5 and doing an edge stitch, and this will ensure a nice cool finishing. And we're going to go ahead and do this on all the side seams of the top. And to make life easier, because the hemming is quite long, we're just going to add bias binding to the edging of the hem. Especially because the silk fabric is quite slippery and delicate. It has a tendency to move around. By using bias binding, it'll make your life easier. And so this is a nice tailoring technique because it gives a nice, beautiful finish. Next, we're going to move on to getting some spaghetti straps. What I've done here is fold in half, bias binding and edge stitching it. If not, another alternative is using some ribbon, but ultimately something like a spaghetti strap is the best go. I've then cut it into 4 pieces, each 32 centimeters long. They will then be paired and placed on each side seam. And to finish off the top, we're going to sew in all the straps to the side seam of the top. And voila, now we're able to tie it at the side seams. And that is the end of the first top done. Here's a look at what it looks like. Alright, so next we're going to move on to the second part of the top, and we're getting this second part of the top from the bottom half of the dress in which we had just cut before. So just gauging it to our upper body bust, it's a good size already, and just by envisioning how the gathering is going to look at the top of the bust as well as bottom of the hem, it looks like it's already going to be a nice fit. So next we're going to flip the skirt around to the back side where we've got the center back seam, and we're just going to cut along that center back seam to open up the pattern piece and have a lot more space to work with. And now all of this will become the front of the top because of all the gathering that we're about to do next. Following this, we're going to get a 6mm thin elastic, and we're going to use 2 strips, one for the top of the top as well as one for the bottom. I've cut 2 pieces here at 35 centimeters. This will be just enough tightness to create around our bust area. What I've got here is the bottom of the skirt in which we had cut. I've put in place a bias binding here, and I've just pinned it down, and essentially this placement is just where I want to place the elastic in between. And there's a little tunnel in here which I'll feed the elastic through. I've already sewn down the elastic on this side. We'll just have to pull it through to the other side once we finish sewing it down. We're going to do the exact same thing of placing the bias binding 8 centimeters from the bottom of the edge. 8 centimeters here and then 8 centimeters here. So we're gonna go ahead and place some pins in place. So now we're able to start sewing down the bias binding to the top, and this will essentially act as a tunnel in which we're able to feed the elastic through the whole way. After sewing down the edges of the bias binding, I'm then going to feel for the elastic. Now I've attached a safety pin to the elastic to help us feel for where it is and to pull it through from one end of the bias binding to the other side to create the gathering effect. So next we're going to get some spaghetti straps again. So you need 4 strips, 2 short ones. I did mine 39 centimeters. You need 2 long ones. I did mine 58 centimeters. And essentially these will get attached to the bodice of the top. The 2 short ones will become the armhole straps. So the 2 long ones will be the tie-up, which will go at the back of the top. Alright, so that comes to the end of the transformation for this top. We've got the armhole loop here, which is this strap here. It goes, your arm goes through there. And then these 2 long straps that you see here will be the tie around at the back. All I did to attach the straps was just using a thread and needle, and voila. We've got the second dress that I'm wearing here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing as what I did with the other dress, and that is just putting a pin in place at where we want to shorten the dress to create this one shoulder top. So I would say around here, and just gauging by where you put the pin in place will give you an idea of what the length of the skirt will be for the bottom, which I'm happy with because I want it to be a high-waisted skirt. Alright, so here we've got the next dress. I've turned it inside out, that way we can draw a line in at where we want to shorten the dress. So looking at where we place the pin at where we want to shorten it, I'm just going to draw a straight line so that we know where we want to cut. So we're going to go ahead and cut across now. So that's the top separated from the bottom of the skirt. So before we move on, it's important that we remove any unnecessary trims such as the fastenings as well as the zip. Alright, so next, I find it easy when I try on the garments and then put in pins at where I want it to be altered. I like the fitting overall. I think nothing much needs to be done to it other than to do the hemming and then to turn it into a one shoulder. So what I'm going to do is just put a pin at where I want the edging to start for the neckline. So next I'm just going to draw in the line at where I want the one shoulder to start from. This new neckline, I guess. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this new neckline. So that's the one shoulder cutout that I like. So here we're just adding the bias binding to the edging of the new neckline that we created. After we've attached the bias binding to the neckline, we're just going to move on to attaching a bias binding to the hem. Now what I forgot to show you guys was that after I had done the bias binding to the hem, I actually folded up 3 centimeters up of the hem to shorten the top into more of a crop top. So here's a final look at the new top. So I'm going to move on to the skirt now, our final piece. So what I've done here is that I've started putting pins in place on the side seam at where I want to taper it in around my waist and my hips. So without further ado, we are going to add the zip first to the center back seam. And so I've chosen a welt zip which is 25 centimeters long. So here we've got a pin in place at where we want to cinch in at the side seam. I've drawn in a line at where we want to taper it in, and slowly from the top of the skirt we're going to blend it in to the side seam at the very bottom of the skirt. We're going to repeat the same process on the other side of the side seam. So to finish off the skirt, we're going to add some bias binding to the top of the skirt. First thing was we're going to sew 0.5 centimeters at the edge, and then we're going to do a double fold over and then finishing it off with an edge stitch. So here's a final look at the new top and skirt. And here's a look at the before transformation and the after transformation. Hi guys, so that comes to the end of my video today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's thrift transformation. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.